Après Royang, je voudrais
Taking the
réfléchir
floor
avec
after
vous
Hoyong, I
sur
would like to
les priorités de ce que
ponder a
pourrait
number of
être
priorities
la présidence française
that could
du G20. Mais je voudrais d'abord
be those of the
rendre
French
hommage
presidency of
à la
G20.
Corée,
However, I would first of
qui
all like to pay
prépare
tribute to
de
Korea.
façon tout à fait
Korea, which
exceptionnelle
is preparing in
le
an
G20
outstanding
de Séoul.
fashion the Seoul
Et
G20
je
meeting.
voudrais aussi
And I would also like
réfléchir avec
to
vous quelques instants
think
sur les débats qui nous ont précédés.
about the discussions that
J'ai
took
lu
place
avec
here
beaucoup d'intérêt le
in the
discours de
previous
Ban Ki-moon, celui
days.
de
I
Jean-Claude
read
Trichet,
the
j'ai écouté
presentation by Ban
le
Ki-moon,
débat
by Jean-Claude
hier
Trichet.
soir.
I participated
Et
in the discussion which
je voudrais
took place
souligner
last
d'entrée
night,
de jeu
and
deux
I would
points.
like from the start to
Je pense que sur ce qu'a
underline
dit
two
Ban
items.
Ki-moon,
I believe
c'est-à-dire les
that
grands défis
what Ban Ki-moon
que nous
mentioned
avons à
about the
relever,
major challenges which we need
tout
to
le monde est
face.
d'accord.
Well,
Qui
we
serait
can all agree
en
on these
désaccord
challenges.
avec
Who
ce que
would
nous
not
a dit
agree
le
on
secrétaire général de l'ONU.
the presentation
La
that
question qui se pose et
the
qui
Secretary
lui est
General of the
posée
United Nations
et qui
made.
concerne les 192
However,
États
the
de
issue
la planète
which
est la
regards all
suivante. Est-ce que les
of our
Nations
countries
Unies
is
sont en
whether
état
the United
de
Nations
relever
are in a
les
position
défis
to face these
auxquels la
challenges
communauté internationale est
which
confrontée?
are
Et
awaiting us.
je crois que la réponse
And I do
est
believe that
évidemment
the
non.
reply is
Donc,
unfortunately
il y a un
negative.
grand chantier
So
qui se
there
pose
is a
dans ce
lot
domaine.
of work to be undertaken in this respect.
La deuxième remarque,
The
c'est
second observation
sur la présentation
regards
qu'a
the
faite Jean-Claude
presentation
Trichet. Là
made by
aussi,
Jean-Claude Trichet.
je crois qu'on est tous d'accord
And yet again, I
avec
believe
lui
that we
pour
can all agree when he
souligner
says
le rôle
that
qu'a pu
the
jouer le
role
G20.
played by G20 is
Le G20
outstanding. Well,
est né de la
G20,
crise.
you will remember,
Mais on avait
stems
besoin
from the
de créer
previous
le G20.
crisis, and it was
En
imperative that
réalité,
G20 be put together. But
Lorsque
in fact,
Nicolas Sarkozy a
when
été élu
Nicolas
d'emblée,
Sarkozy
c'était avant
was
la crise,
elected, and this was
il a
prior
souligné
to
qu'il
the
fallait
economic crisis,
élargir le
he already
G20.
mentioned that G8 had to be
Et
extended.
puis la crise est arrivée.
And then the
Et
economic
une semaine après la chute de
downturn
Lehman
occurred,
Brothers,
and 1
le
week
président
after
de la
the
République a
Lehman
présenté
Brothers
au nom de l'Union européenne
catastrophe,
la
the
proposition
French
d'un sommet.
president suggested
Et au
the
départ,
summit meeting.
on hésitait entre deux formats
And at
possibles.
first, there were two possible
Il y avait
options.
déjà un peu
Either,
existant en
Well,
filigrane
in fact, there was already
la structure de
the existence of a
coopération du G8
cooperation
avec les 5 émergents.
entity of
Et puis il y avait au niveau des
G8,
ministres
sorry.
des Finances le
And
G20.
then there
Très
was
vite,
also
on a
G20
compris
regarding
que
the finance
le G8
ministers.
plus 5
And very quickly
n'avait
we
aucun avenir
realized
pour une
that
seule
G8
raison,
plus 5
c'est que les 5
didn't really
pays
make sense
émergents
because the
ne se
5
sentaient
emerging
pas placés
countries
sur un pied d'égalité
didn't really
par rapport
stand on an
au
equal footing
vieux club du
compared
G8 qui
to
était un
the
peu la
previous,
famille.
the old timers of
Et
the
donc, pour placer tout le monde sur un pied
G8 members.
d'égalité
And
d'emblée,
in order
c'est le
to
G20 qui s'est très
find a
vite
common
imposé.
playing
Je dis
field,
cela parce que
G20 was suggested.
c'était
And
nécessaire
if
de
I
faire
recall
rentrer
this, it is because
dans le club
it was
de
important
ceux qui
to
exercent des
integrate in
responsabilités majeures les
the
pays
club
émergents.
of countries with major
j'ajoute que
responsibilities. We
les
had to
faire,
integrate emerging countries as well.
Entrer, les asseoir à la
But
table, c'est
inviting these
constater
countries, having them
qu'ils sont devenus
participate,
absolument
and realizing that
incontournables.
these countries have become
Mais,
major players.
c'est aussi leur
But
demander de
this
prendre
also
leur part,
implies that they
des
need to take on their
responsabilités.
responsibility.
Alors, j'ai été fasciné par le débat d'hier soir
So I was
auquel
impressed by last
Madame
night's discussion
Fujing nous
when
a expliqué
Madame Fujing
le regard de la
explained
Chine.
China's
Et
view
elle a dit quelque
in
chose
this
qui
respect.
moi, m'a beaucoup
And in
frappé, c'est
fact,
qu'à aucun
she
moment dans
mentioned something
l'histoire,
which was striking. She said
la
that in
Chine et
no
le Japon
time
n'ont été forts au
in
même moment.
the history of Japan and China,
À
both
vrai dire,
nations
on
were
pourrait
strong nations at
reprendre
the same
la
time,
même
simultaneously. In fact,
en Europe,
the same
on avait vu
applies
ça
to
aussi.
Europe. We've seen the
On a
same
eu deux
situation.
guerres mondiales.
We've even
Et
had
puis
two
on a appris
major
depuis
world wars.
50 ans à
And
travailler
then
ensemble.
for the past 50
Je crois
years,
que
we've
un
learned
des
to
grands mérites
cooperate.
du G20,
I believe that
c'est ce
one of the
processus
assets of
qui permet
the
à des
G20
pays
summit is that
qui
it
sont dans des
precisely
situations
suggests
complètement
a
différentes,
procedure for
qui viennent
countries which
d'horizons
stand at
complètement
different
différents, qui ont des
levels.
systèmes
They come
politiques
from
complètement
different
différents,
backgrounds, different histories, different
d'assumer
political
ensemble
systems.
leurs
Well, these
responsabilités,
countries can all
de
partake in
sortir
the
de la
overall
défense
responsibility.
étroite
And
de
going
leurs intérêts
beyond
nationaux
their
pour regarder
tight
au-delà
framework of
ce
national
qu'est
interest,
l'intérêt
they have to
général.
open
Et il
up
faut
and
dire
look
que
and take
la
care
crise
of
financière et
the
économique
interest, the
a
global
été de ce
interest.
point de vue-là
But in fact,
un
the economic
formidable
crisis helped us
accélérateur
in this respect
parce que tout simplement on
because
n'avait pas le choix.
there simply was no
Et c'est
other
vrai
possibility,
que le
there was no other
G20
choice.
a très bien
And
travaillé.
indeed, the
il a
G20
pris
summit worked very well in that respect, because some emergency measures had to be taken, and this would not have been possible prior to the crisis. So I'm not going to come back to these measures. We are all familiar with them, and they have already been discussed they will be discussed yet again during the Seoul Summit. Now, the issue that we have to face today, at a time when we consider the possible role of France and France's proposals, the question is whether the same track is to be followed, the track that was led by the crisis, perhaps adding further regulations and adjusting regulations. Are we going to simply continue this method, or are we going to open up new issues? Well, the first alternative is very tempting, because the economic crisis, without having disappeared altogether, is, however, fading. It is at least fading from our minds. And therefore, the first alternative is very tempting, as I said, and it is tempting to simply complete the work undertaken under this first alternative. The President of the French Republic, after lengthy working meetings and discussions, wishes to add to the existing agenda, and that Fouillon described yesterday. He wishes to add new issues and new topics, because he believes that on one hand there are major issues that remain on the back burner, but that might become real threats for the continuous development of economic growth in the years to come, in the decades to come. So this is a very ambitious proposal, and paradoxically it is more difficult to be ambitious when there is no pressure to do so. And this is the choice that he offers to our partners, suggesting the undertaking of the discussion of three new issues. First of all, the international monetary system reform. That is the first issue. And this obviously is an enormous task. It is an issue which has been put forward ever since the 70s, because we now have a non-international monetary system, a non-system, and there is no point in having a confrontational attitude on exchange rates, etc., because if that is the way we tackle the issue, this will rapidly lead to a cul-de-sac. So we suggest tackling this issue from a different viewpoint, with a much wider vision. Let me give you an example. Emerging countries, through the past decade, have witnessed some 42 incidents of capital exodus. And we realize that some countries today are in the opposite situation, where capital arrives rapidly and it becomes very difficult for them to control the development of their own currency. Perhaps we could consider mechanisms, or developing mechanisms, that could remedy the situation. And I simply wish to quote that example. We can come back and discuss it later, but we wish to bring up this topic without any restrictions, but very cautiously, and simply begin by an extensive reflection, listening to a number of specialists, recognized specialists, who can simply describe the situation. And we wonder whether China could perhaps host such a first seminar before we move on to a second stage elsewhere, inviting ministers, governors of central banks, etc., to that second meeting. The second issue, which is also a very important one, is that of the commodities volatility. And again, this is a tremendous discussion, which cannot no longer be avoided. Remember simply what the previous food security crises were, the riots that stemmed from the food situation in Haiti, Senegal, or elsewhere in Africa, simply because the food prices had increased rapidly, and that hunger and starvation were developing in a shockingly rapid fashion, because this was absolutely not linked to a shortage, a food shortage.